What has gone wrong at DHS?
Well, it's a pretty long list. They have faced a lot of challenges, and part of that is simply a reflection of the culture and of our society. Children in the care of the state have died, as you pointed out. The names Serenity Deal and Ionesty Hicks are haunting a lot of people right now, the pictures of those lovely little girls who are dead now. Coloring the issue has been inaccurate public reporting on some of the data. Oklahoman did a great job fleshing that out and putting it into the public square. That's a big problem when you have, if not dishonest, large-scale mistakes. That counts a lot. And finally, as one of the representatives put it the other day, an unresponsiveness to public concerns in constituencies, really all across the spectrum, both from parents that DHS makes a visit to who aren't doing something wrong, all the way over to cases like this where kids were turned back over to custodial guardians or parents who probably didn't in any way, shape, or form deserve to get them back.
Are there changes that have already taken place at DHS?
Yeah, the legislature has passed a number of laws. Basically every year they're dealing with this in one way or another. Stricter background checks for people involved in foster parent system. Child abuse hotline that's more robust, I guess, than in the past, although apparently that can even be improved. Adoption rather than foster care, kind of a interesting statistic that the head of DHS shared is that Oklahoma is #1 in the country now in getting children in foster care into adoptive homes, #1 per capita. That's actually very significant. More scrupulous on transparency, in part in response to my buddy Peter Rudy pressing on the openness about deliberations and the votes that they take. I suspect members of the commission by now have probably become quite familiar with that audit from 3 years ago and from some of the details of the lawsuit that's pending. So there have been some changes.
And are there additional reforms the legislature is considering for the coming year or in the near future?
Well, that's really the reason for our conversation because, as you know, this was a big press event at the Capitol on Wednesday where Speaker Steele empowered Jason Nelson to continue, Jason Nelson of Oklahoma City and 4 other legislators, bipartisan group, to continue with very aggressive oversight. And they're doing things a little differently, and that's probably good. They're meeting with the frontline employees at the agency, and they're meeting with parents. They're meeting with all kinds of people that are stakeholders, popular term these days, in the agency. I would look for reallocation of resources, possible reorganization of the agency. Nelson made an interesting comment. You can say the agency is top-heavy. You can probably say that it's middle-heavy. You can't say it's bottom-heavy. I think that's a prediction of the future, that you're going to see more resources pushed down to frontline services. Final thing that was discussed, just very briefly, was the role of the churches. A long time ago, there was a movement called One Church, One Child. And if every church would take on the care of even one troubled child in Oklahoma, it would make a big difference. Some churches are absolutely heroic. Some are not that involved, and they could play a role to supplement what government can do.
Let's talk about T.W. Shannon. Historic move this week. The state Republicans, the House Republicans elected him to be their next speaker. We don't have a lot of time, but talk about the significance of T.W. Shannon.
It's obvious on its face what the significance is, and it's not a bad thing to observe. You know, you have a black man elected Speaker of the House of Representatives. A.C. Hamlin in 1908 was elected to the Oklahoma legislature, and he only served 1 term. He was a black man and a Republican. So you could make the case maybe this is back to the future of empowering individuals regardless of background and regardless of their family history. In Shannon's case, a multiplier might be that he's a member of the Chickasaw tribe. That'll make this interesting too.
What strengths or weaknesses, what problems do you see?
I think he brings a lot of strengths. Real briefly, he's a conservative. He's very representative of the caucus. He's worked hard on transportation, a lot of other practical issues. The only thing I'd say, a little concerned about the Chamber of Commerce type issues in terms of tax exemptions and credits, business incentives. And finally, one of his supporters was really kind of crowing over Shannon defeating, very close race, defeating Representative Hickman, and that's Randy Terrill. It'll be interesting to see how Shannon handles the Randy Terrill issue, and we might as well talk about it because it's going to be a big decision. If he gives him a committee chairmanship, I think that'll spell some trouble for him and trouble for the Republicans.
Well, that's one for us to watch, and I know you will be. And of course, you can read more about these and other topics at capitalbeatok.com. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.